We have we were visited by KYOU TV yesterday, and they did actually a very, very nice piece. It was, it attributed far too much to me, but you know, they do their interviews and they put on what they put on. But I think he really captured the essence of what was happening that day. But basically, we had 60 people registered looking at furthering the Southeast Iowa Community Food Web. We had a meeting on May 10th, for those who aren't familiar with it. 2023, exactly. So it's been 17 months. And in the meantime, just astonishing things have happened. Hy-Vee has come on as I think after yesterday, I can say without a doubt, a very full partner. Brought along Capital City Fruit, which is one of the largest distributors who has figured out how to work with Amish farmers without cell phones. They've been doing it for 75 years. Practical Farmers of Iowa, ISU, virtually every significant agricultural organization, a lot of academics, and it was just really a fantastic day. Huge amount of energy.
The Iowa Farm Bureau reports Iowa mostly grows corn and soybeans, which are shipped out to the global market. Bob Ferguson created the Southeast Iowa Food Web to inspire farmers to get involved with produce production for local use.
You could grow enough fruits and vegetables for all of Iowa and the 8 contiguous states on one Iowa county.
Ferguson says years ago we didn't need to import and export goods. He said we had everything we needed locally. Now he wants farmers to diversify what they grow, like maybe using some of their land to grow produce to sell locally. Speakers from a local produce distributor urged others in the room to collaborate.
The interest in local grown and how you need partners, and that's what we're looking for as well.
It's not just produce this group wishes to keep local. Steve Imhoff from Triple Creek Farms raises livestock, which he and his wife strictly sell locally.
Knowing where my food's going, as well as giving a product to the local people that they know where their food is coming from, that be healthy and nutritious.
Imhoff is well aware Iowa mass produces corn and soybeans for all over the world.
Which is much needed, honestly, for the Iowa economy, is to have that global market, but we still need to be able to maintain that local market as well.
So as consumers, Ferguson and Imhoff believe we need to be more aware of what we're buying.
71% of the U.S. diet is now ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed food is not good for our health.
Ferguson wants to inspire farmers to grow things that locals need, as well as encourage consumers to buy local and be mindful of what you are putting in your body. Reporting for KYOU, News for You, I'm Randall Ginn.
All right. So, good. Well, so what's going to happen is that we've got 4 priority areas. We're going to be connecting with the people who are there and others. We'll break into study groups, or action groups. But the big thing is Hy-Vee being there. Hy-Vee was there in force along with Capital City. They're kind of form a nexus, and it was just really very, very clear, I think, to all of us that there was a step shift upward and something we can really work with. So, Jordi, thank you very much for allowing me that time. And now we'd like to hear from Jordi Quevedo-Vals. Jordi.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come see my presentation. I really appreciate it, considering how we're all busy living in the entrepreneur and business owner world. As Bob said, my name is Jordi Quevedo-Vals. I've been given the nickname Joker due to my ability to make people laugh, always smiling, and appearing to be mysterious at times. Today I'm going to present my company, the PARE Group, LLC. This is a company that was formed a little over a month ago. So my company focuses on bookkeeping, business brokering, and taxes for small businesses, individuals. Currently in Fairfield, Southeast Iowa, with plans to expand statewide and potentially nationwide. But how did this name start? The name PARE is pretty much the first 2 letters of the first 2 words of my favorite quote, which is pain plus reflection equals progress. It's a quote that really emphasizes a growth mindset, because I'm sure everybody here knows we've gone through hard times, we've done mistakes, We've gone through failures, but we can agree that during a certain point, we're glad that happened because it turned out to be the greatest learning lessons in whatever we pursued. And let me ask you this, who here knows Ray Dalio?
Who's what, personally?
Knows of Ray Dalio.
Cool. Does anyone want to volunteer? What do you know about him? Just
Meditator, long-term meditator, but also founded Bridgewater and Associates, which is one of the largest hedge funds in the world. I don't actually know where they are at this point.
like 160 billion assets under management.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's a world thought leader.
Absolutely. He wrote his world's bestseller, Principles, which I've already read 3 times because it was so influential, the way he talks about how we conduct ourselves in business. And, go ahead.
He also says 2 other things that are interesting. He said transcendental meditation is the single most important component of his success. And secondly, he said the days of the American Empire are ending and over.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely on the first part. Second part, it can be debatable. But anyhow, and yeah, the reason why I also chose that name was just understanding the culture of Bridgewater Associates. They have very high standards when it comes to performance, the people they hire, as well as the culture. And that's something I definitely want to embody into my current firm when it comes to always performing at a high level for all my clients, hiring great people that will contribute to the growth of the firm, as well as providing an amazing culture where people are excited to work every day moving forward. Okay, so the problem is something I think I've seen and observed over time in any industry. When there's a lack of competition and you're too good at your job, anybody can become lazy and complacent until a new game changer comes in. I can give you a classic example. Taxi cabs around the world, especially in major cities. I'm sure everyone here has used taxis before there was Uber. What did you hate about using a taxi, if anybody wants to volunteer?
Cost, predictable.
There you go, absolutely. But then you would wonder, wouldn't they want to compete and get better if those were the problems? No, because they didn't have competition until Uber came along. And when Uber came, that pretty much changed the market completely. And now everybody prefers to use an Uber than a taxi. And what's really funny is everything that Uber does is not really proprietary, if you think about it. Them having an app to call the taxi, not proprietary. Having a payment method to pay for the service, not proprietary. What happened was taxi companies got angry, pointed fingers, and look where they are now. They're pretty much almost non-existent. And sure, you can argue that in some cities, Uber is a little more expensive than taxis, but I would always take an Uber any day of the week over a taxi, even if it was only a little more expensive, just because of the convenience and customer service involved. That's what I aim to do with bookkeeping in the accounting realm. What we're seeing now with accounting is just constant complaints of bad customer service, horrible quality, outrageous fees for services. I'm sure everyone here uses an accountant. Who here has called an accountant and they don't pick up? Raise your hand.
I remember.
Okay, and how did you feel?
Well, just I understand it, so I leave a message.
Anyway, yeah, great point. But the point of my business is, again, having very high standards when it comes to customer service and the quality provided, making sure everything is done on time in a functioning manner, especially for tax season, which everybody knows here can be a pain in the ass. Right. And then moving forward, so pretty much my solution is using new technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other really cool innovative products that will help my business grow and succeed compared to all the other accounting firms. The advantages I'll also have is it'll help me scale very quickly without having as much specialized labor, as well as reach different parts of the market due to the remote aspect. of it. Again, being different from all the accounting firms who are pretty much too comfortable where they are, in my opinion, as well as providing convenient ways to pay for all of my services, such as using an app where you can even pay with a credit card, because we all know here cash flow can be a major problem in any business. So I think just making it easier for you guys to pay whenever it needs to be paid will be vital, especially using Apple Pay, Google Pay, even buy now, pay later installments through Stripe. Looking at the market, so currently the market in Iowa, all the business owners are actually pretty old per se, like they're either 55 or reaching to that point. And so the trend is a lot of these business owners need help to either sell their business or look for other avenues, because currently a lot of them don't have any succession plans in place. And this is why my service is so valuable, to provide those tax and bookkeeping services needed when they want to sell, because all the financials will be requested with full accuracy as well. And then we're also seeing the trends, such as myself, of younger people coming back to the Midwest and starting small businesses, but using technology like I'm doing in order for new discoveries, growth, etc. Looking at the industries, obviously being in Iowa, the main industry is agriculture, which is actually a huge opportunity itself, because many farmers don't know how to do basic accounting, bookkeeping, or even being organized with taxes. This is where I come in as well, because of all the money that's involved in capital, land, feed, etc. And another reason why I think my business will do very well compared to my competitors, I'll have pricing that is competitive compared to my competitors, while providing great service and high quality. I can write you an example here. Let's say you hire a firm where they tell you, okay, we need to do your books, but it's going to take us 10 hours. And they charge you $50 an hour. So just doing the basic math. $500, right? With my services, maybe they might be a little expensive or cheaper depending on, like, for example, I currently charge $70 an hour, but it's actually going to take me 5 hours to do compared to my competitors, because of all technology I'm using to help streamline a lot of these processes for better accuracy, etc. So as a business owner, if you really care about the pricing, especially a tight budget, having cash flow issues, which option would be better for you? $350? Okay, $350.
There's a big assumption that you just stated, which is your accuracy is equal to or better than. So I'd pay the $500 if the $350 meant I had poor product or poor results. But if you're assuming equal or better accuracy, then $350 is much better.
Absolutely. And just from my own market research and also talking to a lot of people, they still do it the old-fashioned way, everything by hand. I will tell you this much, even though obviously nothing is perfect, my service is always going to be more accurate than something that's manual. Because also what's happening is a lot of these guys are just overworked pretty much and overburdened with so much work, so much client, that leads to burnout. And so what happens? The quality goes down. So I can guarantee you that will be a much better service considering that. Another reason why my business will do very well is I really focus on cash flow. Cash flow is the only thing I care about when it comes to my business. I don't care if you have a great idea, great advantage, yada, 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 yada. If you're burning money like there's no tomorrow, you're not gonna last. You're gonna have so much instability, especially when it comes to potentially getting more fundraising. If problems happen in the economy, which we've seen in the last 20 years, shit can hit the fan, right? Etc. So really emphasizing on cash flow, having very strong financial stability, and they'll even position us as a greater competitor during downturns, because it will show that we can really withstand and provide the same or even better quality and customer service compared to my competitors. And with growth, so my plans with the firm is to actually venture on into private equity, so the process of acquiring businesses and either revamping them up with the same technology for better margins, better growth, and keep running them, or to sell them off at a much higher valuation, resulting in the capital gains. And the point that I mentioned before was, remember when I said all these business owners were retiring, right? And obviously these guys need to sell because, again, they have no succession plan, they don't have family or friends that are involved, or they don't even know anyone that's knowledgeable in whatever sector or field they're working in. This is where my firm will come in, offer a price based on value and just work with it, right? Constantly find new ways, develop new technology, as well as work with a lot of important stakeholders such as politicians, other important figures, etc. For example, I've had a lot of conversations now with the office of Senator Joni Ernst, who actually heads business development for the whole state. And their main initiative is definitely technology. There's no question. So that's why that'll also really help when it comes to those opportunities. And then these are all my strategic partners that I'm working with now. I'm doing it for a couple reasons. One, it's helping me save a ton of money. Like a lot of them have offered me free memberships, a lot of free resources that are worth tens of thousands of dollars, trying to keep my burn rate as low as possible just because I just started, etc. And then on top of that, it can lead to even more opportunities where they've even offered to introduce me to certain people and firms in the industry, such as PwC and Ernst Young, etc. And the list will keep growing and growing. Yeah, that was it. Boring, simple, but I believe in making money. I believe in being successful. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So any questions, concerns, or go ahead.
What's an example of an AI tool that you're using?
Yeah, great question. So currently, so I should have mentioned this. I have a partner who is both a robotics developer and a senior accountant at a casino now. He helped develop some workflow models that will help automate a lot of the reconciliations during month end for bookkeeping, etc. On the tax side, we're working with a couple major software players where they help strategize where you can get the most deductions, tax credits, pointing out the liabilities, as well as providing internal audits, so peace of mind as well to the clients. And because of those services we're using as well, it's keeping our overhead costs extremely low, so we can offer competitive pricing while having extremely high margins. Again, emphasizing on cash flow.
Jordi, I'm betting that people would be interested. Thank you. I'm betting people would be interested in your background because you had quite an experience at Goldman, and so I think people would like to know, what did you experience at Goldman that informs what you're trying to do now, and I think people would be interested in that.
Sure, absolutely. So I used to be an operations analyst for the investment bank Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City, where a lot of it was middle office, back office roles, etc. So it really taught me how to streamline a lot of workflows, as well as having a risk management perspective, which is why I'll always keep emphasizing on cash flow, as well as working with a partner now that does all of my risk management and compliance, especially SOC 2, HIPAA, you name it, which I know majority of my competitors are not doing as well. So it's really helped me develop a lot of skills that are really valuable in the work I do, as well as the connections I made all over the country now. And the ability to pick up that phone, make that phone call to that specific person at that time when I need it will be very valuable as I grow my business.
So, corollary question, Jordi. You're a young guy. A lot of us have quite a bit of mileage on us. And as you pointed out, what is it about Fairfield? What is it about our community that's attractive to you? What brought you, I mean, other than people throwing up in the elevators and committing suicide and everything that you mentioned, a few little corollary things to that kind of high stress environment. But tell us about why you're here and what that could inform us collectively about how we make our community more attractive.
Yeah, definitely. So just a bit of background. I am from here originally. My parents went to MIU. That's why I'm from here. I went to Maharishi School till I was 10, and then I lived abroad for many years. Lived and traveled all over the world. So huge eye-opening experience. I think what really attracts me about Fairfield is definitely the people. All the people I've got to interact so far, and the potential Fairfield has in making it a once amazing town that I remember growing up, and bringing back the young people, the technology, the opportunities, and how we can just skyrocket the opportunities. And another reason why I love being in Fairfield is, everything is so close, so it really helps as a business owner, just time. And because there's not too many distractions, it's so easy for me now to really form and execute ideas. Where if I was in a city, that would have been a lot harder because of the daily stress, constant distractions, just dealing with so many people, and I would have a lot more competition. Like my business probably wouldn't work in a metropolitan city just because I knew so many people around my same age are doing the exact same thing I'm doing. But they have to deal with higher regulations, higher taxes potentially. So that's where I also have another big advantage.
In Fairfield, you're dealing with a lot of small businesses, not too sophisticated, mom-and-pop outfits, no exit strategy, which you had mentioned. But it seems to me the most inefficient connection is between the client and then them not understanding accounting, not mixing up their credit cards, not being able to separate their personal checking account and expenses from any business checking account and expenses, if they have one, and not making wise business decisions that can even be translated into accounting. Usually you get a paragraph or two of a story, and then you can't reach them because they're busy. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, great question. And obviously that is something I've already countered multiple times. I think it's a couple things. One is definitely making it as convenient as possible for them when it comes to paying for my services, always being reachable by phone, email, etc. A second part is I'm getting a website currently developed. And it's going to be a website that's also super easy to use compared to my competitors, as well as having a ton of educational resources that they can check on themselves. And the way these resources will be formatted is something that a 5-year-old can understand. Something that's simple and easy to understand. And then I'm not telling them to be an expert at it, but at least have some basic understanding. And again, that's where we come in. We take care of that part for them. We take away that stress, the hassle, especially during tax season.
So my question is really related to this, that before you can sit down and complete the tax return, you have a full bookkeeping framework that has been put in place by either the individual business owner, who usually is not doing it very well.
Right.
So is your business exclusively as a tax preparer, or are you actually thinking that this website is going to somehow magically produce well-informed and organized material that you can dump into your automated tax reporting function?
Yeah, great question. So also another thing our firm does is we help integrate and clean up a lot of the bookkeeping that our new clients would have. Because obviously, like you said, they're not organized, they don't know what they're doing. And we use QuickBooks Online, which is very popular because it's very easy to manage and use, and it helps integrate with a lot of our other softwares that helps produce the results and keep the business successful. And yeah, you're right, it will be a learning curve, but I think it will also be easier with younger business owners, which is the trend now, right? Because the ones that have been doing it for a while are getting old and are thinking of retirement, etc. And then that's where we have a new batch of younger business owners that will also be a lot more open to the technology, a lot more open to the convenience, being on the go, etc.
Hey, Jordi. My question is regarding all the data that you're collecting, right?
Yes.
So you're getting a lot of rich data. You're
Yes.
learning a lot of how the business operates
Yes.
financially. And what could be made with that as far as like insights or maybe some sort of, strategic advice that you can give these business owners? For example, if they have too much overhead compared to the cash flow of their peers in that particular sector, or they're not spending enough on digital marketing, and you see their other peers are getting great return on investment from that, or like different types of support maybe in services that you can offer, or advisory services and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And actually, that's another thing I want to definitely do with my business, because I'm still too early on, so I don't have enough data. But once we start collecting a lot of data, then we can look at, like you had mentioned, where they're spending too much money, how are they doing compared to the overall market? Why is their cash flow not as high as it should be compared to their industry, etc. And obviously, I'll probably hire a third-party firm to do that, like advanced data analytics. I'm actually talking now with Snowflake.
I wonder if anyone does that. Is there any analysis or insight layer?
Yeah, so only at the big four accounting firms, which they make up like 90% of the market, and they only service to large and mid-sized companies. Well, that's where I also have another advantage. I'm willing to do all the advanced stuff that the big four have, even though it will cost money, but provide great value and service to the small businesses, etc. And I know that data is probably the most valuable commodity in the world, because I had actually invested into another big data analytics company called Palantir Technologies. And well, I've seen this week I should have waited, but I cashed out and I made like a 350% return last year. If I had waited, it would have been a 600% return, because I understand it'll be the future. So it's a question of how can we integrate that to be part of the future so we can succeed.
My wife and I have been using TaxHawk for about 10 years. As you know, it's free. So how would you compare TaxHawk and other similar programs with what you offer?
Yeah, great question. So you're right, it is free, but at the end of the day, for small businesses, even though they could do it alone, doesn't mean they should. Because let me ask you this, how many pages is the US Federal Tax Code? Would anyone know?
320,000 pages.
Too many.
Too many.
10,000.
800.
Almost 7,000. That's how big the tax code is. They don't even know the exact number of pages, which shows why it's so complicated. So you cannot expect a small business owner, especially if their industry is not accounting or finance, to understand what they're doing. And with my software as well, it'll help get all the deductions, all the tax credits, all the write-offs. I can give you an example. So I was with a client recently and I looked at his previous tax form. Everything was done well, like correctly, but there was a lot of missed opportunities that, this accountant should have pointed out and actually written off. He had $70,000 worth of deductions in his tax return, but the accountant didn't use it. How wasteful is that, right? Imagine if you could write that off, not just your year, but into your current year if you lost money. So it's really understanding the tax code. I think that's where also the advantage come into play, really lowering the tax liability as much as possible.
So could you say that maybe for people in low income medium income for their personal finances, tax hawk might be okay, but
Yes,
higher income
exactly.
companies, you want to go for an account.
Exactly. It'll always be worth the return on investment compared to what they can get you back after they file compared to doing it on their own. And again, you have to use a lot of software. You cannot do it alone manually. Because first, what I've noticed is they're going to take a lot longer, and I think they're kind of ripping you off because they're charging you by the hour. Well, with a lot of our tax forms, we just charge per form. That's it, flat fee. So it's simple, transparent pricing, as well as ensuring a lot better accuracy because of the internal audits we have in place, etc.
You're a small starting business. So what is your plan for yourself or your business for prospecting? How much time are you going to spend prospecting? And are you going to do it, or are you going to have somebody else do it for you?
Yeah, great question. So yes, obviously there is some prospecting involved, but it's not as bad as actually I thought when I first started, because knowing how Fairfield operates as a community, everything is word of mouth referrals. So it's just going to a couple community events, coming up with opportunities. And the beauty of my business is some of my clients have more than one business. They can have 4 or 5 businesses. So they're actually 4 or 5 clients if they bring them over. And then on top of that, they're friends with other business owners who own multiple businesses. And so that referral can really help keep my customer acquisition costs down. And obviously I'm new, so they don't really know, but after a year, if they're very happy with me, most likely they'll just stay with me. I don't see why they would put in the time or the effort to go to somebody else if it's going to consume so much time, etc. Oh, in the back.
No, you need it for camera.
Oh, for the camera.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was sending an email back here. Sorry, Jordi. So you mentioned regulations in this
Yes.
area were beneficial. It'd be nice to hear a little bit more about that. And then for particularly your kind of business. And the other question I had was, did you explore, I think we talked about it briefly, did you explore any of the opportunities for potential expat or repatriating, people who are repatriating income?
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm sorry, your first point was regulation.
When Bob asked you what were some of the reasons why you wanted. When Bob asked you what
Right.
some of the reasons why you wanted to be here, one of the things you mentioned was regulation. So that seemed, I mean, all the other stuff you mentioned was awesome too, but that seemed like a very technical point that might be interesting to hear more about. And then the other question was, did you explore anything about people with foreign incomes or expats or people or other people repatriating income to the United States or from here to somewhere else?
Absolutely. Yeah, so to your first point, when I was mentioning regulation, obviously, I think I was referring to as a state level as well, because obviously different states have different regulations. And there's some states where it's just so hard to start and keep a business, while other states, it's a lot easier. Like, I would never start a business in California, Massachusetts, or New York, New Jersey, just because of all the crazy regulation, bureaucracy hurdles, extremely high tax rates that would eat into my margins very quickly, compared to a state like Iowa, where there's not a lot of regulation. And give me a specific example of regulation. In the state of Iowa, I'm allowed to do what's called a series LLC. So this pretty much, what I would probably want to do with my company if we start acquiring businesses, we're going to have the parent group up here, the Bain Group, and then we're going to have smaller companies. And this is actually really helpful for a couple reasons. One, it's very easy to negotiate a lot of my operating overhead of how I can transfer it to not just the parent company, but to all the other companies under it, such as umbrella insurance, other fees and taxes, etc. So that'll get my operating overhead even low. And let's say something goes really wrong with one of these businesses, like they're losing a ton of money, they're getting sued, etc. Because they're all separated, only this company will be affected. It won't affect anybody else. Now, if I had all of these in just the parent company, that would be a problem, because if something were to happen with one of these, that would hurt the whole company as a whole. And then another example, let's say this same company lost Let's say this company lost $100,000 in 1 year, but these two other companies had $50,000 net income for each. What I can do when it comes to tax season, I can deduct all these losses into the net incomes of all these businesses. So pretty much I won't pay taxes on any of these two incomes. Go ahead.
So how is that different from, I mean, you mentioned some states where that might not be the case, but isn't it common for people to register a business in Wyoming or Delaware? Like, how is that? Would that be, if you're, let's say, an international business that wants to set up an office in the US, it's common to do either of those two states. Is there an advantage to Iowa over those two states? Or have you not looked at it?
I have not looked at it, but then I guess it's also looking at the labor costs too, right? That's something I should have mentioned, another advantage, because Delaware and Wyoming, the labor and real estate costs are super high compared to a state like Iowa. Like if you go to both, if in Wyoming, at Casper, I think the median house price is like $500,000. While here it's around 200.
I don't think they move there. I just think they start the business there.
No, you're right. But then then I guess with that example, you can only do that in Iowa and 7 other states.
Okay.
And then there's the Serial LLC. Okay. And the thing is, I am from here too, right? So I have that family and personal connection. So I think in anything that really helps when you venture out into something like this. And then your second point, yes, I have started reaching out to all the embassies worldwide. They are reaching out. Obviously, it's going to be a process. We won't really know until like time comes, but we're pretty confident because at the end of the day, like Benjamin Franklin says, two things that will always happen in life: death and there you go. And there's a reason why he's on the $100 bill and on the $1 bill.
That's right. So Jordi, I mean, as you pointed out, the tax code is immensely complex. You are offering a service that absolutely involves and implies strategic thinking around small business management of taxes and overhead and books. So that, take, for example, the old guy in this business that has the most reputation is Fred Schwartz here in town. Tremendous amount of experience and creativity. What is your skill set, background, and experience? Do you have academic degrees in the accounting world or taxation or business strategy that is going to help you? Because if you're operating starting here, chances are you're going to be selling against Fred Schwartz. And so what is it that you bring to the table that you think can outsmart a seasoned veteran like that?
Yeah, definitely. Great point. There's a couple things. One is I'm not only going to focus on Fairfield. I'm also going to focus on Iowa City and Des Moines. That's where I'm also going to get another firm to really hammer in on search engine optimization. And I know just because there's so many people, and you guys probably don't know this, 99% of all businesses in Iowa are small businesses. And just understanding supply and demand, there's only so many clients that a firm can take at a time. So it'll be there, it's just a matter of getting them and keeping them for the long term. Academic background, I majored in economics at Boston University. It was a top 20 program in the country. Since then, I've had multiple experiences across risk management in banks, wealth management with UBS, operations with Goldman Sachs, etc., as well as my background, a lot of time living abroad really opened my eyes to the world, and having really deep connections to the area, as well as being a lot cheaper, because what I've been told, it can cost $600 to do a personal tax return with Frederick Schwartz, which I think is a scam, but that's whatever. I really believe in providing value-based pricing. Still keep our margins high, but it's sustainable for a small business owner.
Okay, well, that's sort of my follow-on question in terms of business strategy, and I'm exploring this as if creative possibilities of what your business development looks like. But have you considered, say, for example, a guy like Fred Schwartz is prime for retirement?
Right. Exactly.
He's also a wealth of knowledge and experience and network. So you could come in and try to effectively outcompete Fred Schwartz, or you could say, I'm your successor. Bring me into your practice, build my knowledge so that I can learn from what your strategic experience tells me. I start out with essentially taking over a very well-established practice, and from there you go into acquisition mode. I'm just thinking out loud if you've considered that as a business development pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always crossed my mind, not just with Frederick Schwartz, but other well-established CPA firms. And that's actually one of my current challenges now. I would like to hire a CPA. Because truth be told, I do know a lot of accounting. I took a bunch of accounting classes, but it's just not my interest per se. My interest is more on the sales side. It's more on the technology side. So I'd rather get someone that's really engaged in accounting, that lives and breathes in accounting. And then he can learn from Frederick Schwartz, as well as possibly taking over books, a business in the future.
Yeah, Fairfield Accounting is a good example. They're no longer, but
They want Graph absorbed them.
took them over, right?
Right, and mostly on the private equity acquisition side, I would most likely start with accounting firms first, since like you said, a lot of them are retiring and they have huge books of business, a lot of revenue, a lot of good cash flow, and just revamp them up. And then most likely after that, I'll move on to more healthcare and technology. Go ahead.
This configuration you have on the board is not unique to Iowa, so I wasn't quite following the idea of having a parent with subsidiaries underneath it, what's so special about what's going on in Iowa?
Yeah, so it's not just Iowa. I believe there are 7 other states, including Missouri, Texas, a couple other states, and this is a series LLC. It's a very specific formation that is actually illegal in 42 states. So this wouldn't work in those 42 states. You'd have to have separate, I would either have to have everything in one parent group, or they'll all have to be separate companies, which can be very hard to manage if you want to have a lot of companies, which is something I want to do, because I want to diversify my risk.
I see, so these ones on the bottom, they're not separate companies.
No, they are, but not in this structure.
They're what?
They're separately operating companies, but still part of that overall structure.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Cool. Any other questions, comments, ideas? Okay, Jordi, thank you very much. This is great. To me, this is a terrific example of what Traction Thursdays is all about. Jordi gets to practice, his pitch, and we get to understand things and start being creative with them and support each other. And we get to find out how we can get more youngsters like him to come and be part of our community.